Most people think they're saving money by doing it themselves. Silas thought so too. He was a world-class architect, but there he was, standing on a ladder to change a $5 light bulb to save a $50 service fee. He thought he was being responsible. He didn't realize that in that 20-minute trip to the hardware store, he wasn't saving $50. He was effectively lighting $300 on fire. Silas was a success trap victim. He was earning more than ever, but he had less freedom than a factory worker. He was drowning in thick work, billing for his sweat instead of his genius, and he was one bad week away from a total collapse. If you feel like the harder you work, the behinder you get, you are living the same lie Silas was. In the next few minutes, we are going to walk through the 7 radical shifts that took Silas from a burnt-out, hustle culture slave to a man who earns 5 times more while working half the time. This isn't about life hacks or grinding harder. This is about the cold, mathematical destruction of everything you've been taught about productivity. We're going to reveal the vital 20 rule that makes 80% of your to-do list irrelevant, the death of the hourly rate that will decouple your income from your lifespan, and the silent machine Silas built that earns for him while he's off-grid in the mountains. Pay close attention to Lesson 6. It contains a single calculation that will tell you exactly how much money you are losing every time you check your email. If you skip a single chapter of this story, you might keep the money, but you'll definitely lose the time. And as Silas learned the hard way, you can always make more money, but you can never buy back a wasted Tuesday. Let's dive into the architecture of freedom. The death of the hourly rate, the architect's shackles. Picture a man named Silas. Silas is a master architect, a man whose mind can transform a jagged cliffside into a glass and steel sanctuary. For 15 years, Silas has lived by a sacred, yet invisible contract, the invoice. Every month he sits at his mahogany desk and meticulously logs his life in 6-minute increments. 8:00 a.m. to 8:06 a.m. consultation. 8:06 a.m. to 8:12 a.m. drafting. To Silas, time is a commodity, a liquid he pours into a measuring cup and sells to the highest bidder. He believes he is being fair. He believes he is being precise. But Silas is actually trapped in a sophisticated form of indentured servitude. You see, Silas has become too good at his job. What used to take him 10 hours to design, a complex cantilevered roof, now takes him 45 minutes of pure, crystalline genius. But because he sells his life by the hour, his reward for 15 years of mastery is a massive pay cut. The more efficient he becomes, the less he earns. The more brilliant his solution, the cheaper it is for the client. Silas has hit the efficiency ceiling, a glass roof that shatters only when you realize that the clock is a liar. In the second movement of Work Less, Earn More, Elias Granton takes a sledgehammer to the very foundation of the modern working world, the hourly rate. This is the original sin of the professional class. When you bill by the hour, you are not selling your talent, your vision, or your years of accumulated wisdom. You are selling your mortality. You are telling the world that your value is tied to the ticking of a mechanical hand. Granton argues that this creates a toxic misalignment of incentives. The client wants the job done fast. The hourly worker is incentivized to work slow. The client wants a breakthrough. The hourly worker is rewarded for a marathon. It is a system built on friction, a tug-of-war where no one truly wins. Silas sits in his office, staring at a design that could save a developer $10 million in construction costs. If he bills for the hour it took to think of it, he makes $300. If he bills for the value of the $10 million he saved them, he changes his life forever. The transition from time-based to value-based billing is not a tactical shift. It is a psychological revolution. It requires you to stop looking at your stopwatch and start looking into the eyes of your client to see their pain, their ambition, and their value gap. Granton tells us that people do not buy hours, they buy outcomes. They buy the relief of a problem gone, the thrill of a profit gained, or the status of a dream realized. When a heart surgeon performs a life-saving operation in 20 minutes, You don't ask for a discount because he was fast. You pay for the 20 years of study that made those 20 minutes possible. Yet in our daily lives, we apologize for our speed. We pad our hours to make the invoice look full. We perform theatrical busyness to justify our fee. Granton demands we stop the charade. He insists that we name the price of the transformation, not the price of the transit. But here is the deep dive, the loop that most are too afraid to close. To charge for value, you must actually be valuable. You cannot hide behind a clock anymore. When you sell an hour, you are protected by the mere fact that you showed up. When you sell a result, you are standing naked on the stage of performance. Silas decides to test this. A new developer approaches him for a hotel project. Instead of quoting an hourly rate, Silas asks, "What is it worth to you to have this hotel finished 3 months ahead of schedule and fully booked before the ribbon cutting?" The developer's eyes widen. "That is worth millions." Silas proposes a flat success fee tied to that specific outcome. He works intensely, leveraging his 20% of high-impact genius, and finishes the work in record time. He doesn't bill for the 40 hours. He bills for the 3 months of extra revenue he generated. Suddenly, the chains fall off. Silas is no longer a slave to the 9 to 5. He is no longer counting 6-minute increments. He has detached his income from his biological clock. This is the moment Silas, and perhaps you, realizes that the wealthiest people in the world don't have jobs that pay by the hour. They have solutions that pay by the impact. The clock continues to tick for everyone else, but for Silas, time has finally become his own. He is earning 5 times more while working half the time, all because he stopped selling his life and started selling his light. The question remains, are you billing for the sweat on your brow or the fire in your mind? The 80-20 rule, the architect and the hamster wheel. Imagine Silas long before he became a master of his own destiny. In those early years, Silas was a man possessed by the hustle. He was the first to arrive at the studio and the last to turn off the lights, his silhouette a permanent fixture against the glowing window. To the outside observer, Silas was the model of dedication. But inside, Silas was crumbling. He spent his mornings in a frantic dance with his inbox, answering urgent queries about tile samples and parking space dimensions. He spent his afternoons in committee meetings that bled into the evening, discussing things that would never actually be built. He felt like he was sprinting a marathon every single day, yet his career felt stagnant, his designs felt uninspired, and his bank account was merely treading water. Silas was a victim of the quantity fallacy, the belief that the universe rewards you for the sheer volume of your struggle. Then one rainy Tuesday, Silas encountered the ghost of Vilfredo Pareto. He realized that his life was being governed by a mathematical law he had been ignoring, the 80-20 principle. This law dictated that 80% of Silas's true progress, the legendary designs, the landmark contracts, the breakthroughs in urban planning, came from a mere 20% of his daily actions. The other 80% of his time, it was noise. It was the administrative static and the low-value busywork that made him feel productive while keeping him profoundly broke. Silas looked at his to-do list and realized it wasn't a ladder to success. It was a cage. He was spending the vast majority of his life polishing the bars instead of unlocking the door. The realization was like a lightning strike. Silas performed a workplace autopsy. He looked at every project he had touched over the last year and traced the revenue back to its source. He discovered that a handful of high-impact clients and a small sliver of intense, creative design work were responsible for almost all of his success. The rest was just friction. He saw that his busyness was actually a form of laziness, a way to avoid the terrifying, difficult, and high-stakes work that actually moved the needle. It is easy to answer 50 emails. It is hard to sit in silence and solve a structural riddle that changes the face of a city. The deep dive here is the ruthless pruning. Granton argues that to grow, you must be willing to kill. Silas began to execute a strategy of strategic neglect. He stopped attending meetings where he wasn't a key decision-maker. He hired a part-time assistant to act as a shield against the trivial quick questions. He ignored the font choices on his internal memos and focused entirely on the vital 20%, the high-level conceptualizing and the relationship building with visionaries. At first, the fear was paralyzing. He felt like he was failing his duties. He expected the studio to collapse without his constant meddling in the minutiae. But something else happened instead. The studio didn't collapse, it began to soar. By reclaiming those lost hours from the thick 80, Silas found he had the energy to be brilliant again. He wasn't just working, he was advancing. He realized that hustle culture is a scam designed to keep people too tired to realize they are on a treadmill. Silas stopped running. He stepped off the wheel, looked at the path ahead, and decided that from now on, he would only move the needles that mattered. He had found the lever long enough to move his world, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't just busy, he was powerful. The architecture of deep work, Silas and the fortress of focus. Imagine Silas, now liberated from the hourly shackles, sitting in his sun-drenched studio. The world knows he is a genius, and the world wants a piece of that genius. His phone vibrates with the persistent hum of quick questions. His inbox is a hydra. For every head he chops off with a reply, 2 more sprout in its place. He has the high-value contracts and he has the talent, but he finds himself at 2:00 p.m. having accomplished nothing but the digital shallow work of modern existence. He is a master architect being nibbled to death by ducks. He realizes that the greatest threat to his new life isn't a lack of skill, it's the fragmentation of his soul. Every time he checks a notification, he pays a switching cost, a cognitive tax that drains his brain's battery. It takes 20 minutes to regain the state of flow, but he never stays away from his screen for more than 10. Silas is a Ferrari idling in a school zone. Granton introduces us to the concept of deep work, a term popularized by Cal Newport, but weaponized here as the primary engine of the work-less philosophy. Deep work is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It is the only state in which the vital 20% actually gets done. In a world of infinite distraction, the ability to go deep is becoming the rarest and most valuable currency in the economy. Most people work in a state of continuous partial attention, a gray fog where they are neither fully working nor fully resting. Granton argues that if you can master the art of the 4-hour deep work block, you will outproduce a 40-hour shallow work week by a factor of 10. Silas decides to build a fortress of focus. He institutes a blackout protocol. From 8:00 a.m. to 12:00 p.m., his phone is locked in a drawer in another room. His internet is physically disconnected. He tells his clients that he is in the lab and unavailable. At first, the silence is deafening. His brain, addicted to the dopamine hits of notifications, screams for a distraction. He feels the phantom vibration of a phone that isn't there. But then, around the 60-minute mark, something miraculous happens. The fog clears. The ghost in the machine returns. Silas begins to see patterns in his architectural designs that he hadn't noticed in years. He isn't just drawing, he is solving. This is the flow state, the peak human experience where time seems to vanish and the work flows out of you like water. In these 4 hours, Silas completes a design that would have previously taken him 3 days of distracted, shallow effort. By noon, he is done. His brain is tired but satisfied. He emerges from his fortress and sees the chaos of the world, the people frantic, the inbox warriors typing furiously, the multitaskers failing at 3 things at once, and he realizes he has cheated the system. He has compressed a week of value into a single morning. The deep dive here is the completion paradox. The less you try to do, the more you actually finish. By narrowing his focus to one single, massive objective during his deep work block, Silas ensures that the needle mover is always pushed. He doesn't multitask because multitasking is a myth. It is merely task switching that leaves a residue of confusion on the brain. He protects his cognitive energy like a dragon guards gold. He understands that his brain has a limited supply of decision-making juice each day, and he refuses to waste it on deciding which email to answer first. As the sun begins to set, Silas isn't exhausted, he is energized. He spends his afternoon playing with his children, reading books that have nothing to do with architecture, and letting his subconscious mind incubate the next day's problems. He has learned that the secret to earning more isn't working harder, it's working deeper. He has moved from being a victim of the attention economy to being its master. The fortress doors are closed, and inside, greatness is being built in the silence. The machine that never sleeps, the gospel of systems. Now imagine Silas sitting on a balcony in Santorini. The air smells of salt and roasting lamb. He is 3,000 miles away from his studio, his laptop is closed, and his phone is tucked away in a hotel safe. To the old Silas, the Silas who build by the hour, this would be a financial catastrophe. Every minute spent watching the sunset would be a minute of lost income. But the new Silas is smiling. Why? Because while he is sipping Asiatico wine, a silent, invisible army is working for him. Back in his digital fortress, the gears are turning. Leads are being captured, sorted, and nurtured. Invoices are being generated and paid. Project files are being backed up and organized. Silas has transitioned from being the motor of his business to being its architect. He has built a machine that doesn't need his permission to succeed. Elias Granton posits that most entrepreneurs and high-level professionals aren't actually business owners. They are high-paid employees of their own creation. If you stop, the money stops. That isn't freedom. It's a cage with better wallpaper. The fourth lesson of Work Less, Earn More is the radical shift from manual labor to systematic automation. Granton argues that every human being has a cognitive quotient, a finite amount of mental energy. If you spend that energy on repetitive, low-level tasks, you are bankrupting your genius. You must view every recurring task as a leak in your bucket that needs to be plugged with a system. Silas began this transformation by performing a system audit. He looked at his workflow and realized he was performing the same onboarding dance with every new client. He was manually sending the same 3 emails, the same contract, and the same questionnaire. It took him 2 hours every time. He realized this wasn't client service. It was a waste of a master architect's time. He implemented a simple automation stack, a scheduling tool linked to a CRM that triggers a legal contract and an automated welcome sequence. Total cost, $50 a month. Total time saved, 10 hours a week. He didn't just save time, he removed the friction of the mundane. But systems aren't just software. They are standard operating procedures, SOPs. Silas realized that the 80% of tasks he couldn't automate with code, he could delegate to people, but only if the instructions were so clear a child could follow them. He spent 1 week filming himself doing his shallow work, researching building codes, organizing site photos, filing expenses. He turned those videos into a digital handbook. Now, when a task arises that falls outside his vital 20%, he doesn't do it. He triggers the system. A virtual assistant in a different time zone sees the trigger, follows the SOP, and completes the task while Silas sleeps. The deep dive into this lesson reveals a psychological barrier, the "I'm the only one who can do this" trap. This is the ego speaking, not the CEO. Granton warns that if you believe you are irreplaceable in every facet of your work, you have effectively capped your income at the limits of your own exhaustion. By building systems, Silas has decoupled his earning potential from his physical presence. He has created institutional memory. If he decides to take a month off, the machine keeps humming. If he decides to scale his business, he doesn't have to work harder. He just has to turn the dial on the machine. As the sun dips below the Aegean horizon, Silas receives a notification on his watch. A new client has just signed a contract and paid a deposit, all without Silas saying a single word. He realizes that the ultimate luxury isn't a fast car or a big house. It's the peace of mind that comes from knowing your value is being delivered by a system you designed, rather than a life you are spending. He takes another sip of wine. The machine is working. The loop is closed. And for the first time, Silas is truly free. The alchemy of high-leverage assets, the architect's legacy. Imagine Silas standing in the center of a grand library he designed years ago. The sunlight streams through the clear-story windows, hitting the spines of thousands of books. He looks at his own blueprints framed on the wall. In the old world, those blueprints were a one-and-done transaction. He drew them, he got paid, and the value of that intellectual labor evaporated the moment the building was topped out. To earn more, he had to draw *new* lines for a *new* client. He was a hunter, only eating what he killed that day. But Elias Granton introduces a concept that turns Silas from a hunter into a farmer. High-leverage assets ***. This is the art of cloning your expertise so it can be sold 1,000 times without you having to lift a finger a second time. It is the transition from selling your labor to selling your logic. Granton explains that most professionals suffer from linear income. If you work 1 hour, you get paid 1 unit of money. If you want 2 units, you must sacrifice 2 hours. This is a mathematical trap. To break it, you must create assets that possess infinite scalability. These are products or systems where the cost of producing the second unit is essentially zero. Think of a software developer who writes a line of code once, and it is downloaded by millions. Think of an author who bleeds onto the page for a year, and that book provides royalties for decades. For Silas, the high-leverage asset wasn't a building. It was the * methodology he used to design it. Silas decides to package his 15 years of architectural wisdom into a masterclass for junior developers on how to design for maximum urban density without sacrificing aesthetic soul. He spends 3 weeks of his deep work blocks filming the curriculum. He builds a digital portal. He sets up a payment gateway. Now when a young architect in Singapore or a developer in London wants to learn his secrets, they pay for the course. Silas isn't there. He is sleeping. He is hiking. He is designing his next masterpiece. But the asset is out in the world, working as his digital twin. He has effectively cloned his brain and put it on a shelf for sale. This is the alchemy of wealth. Granton argues that you should spend at least 20% of your time creating assets that will pay you for the next 10 years. Most people spend 100% of their time on tasks that pay them only for today. By shifting his focus, Silas creates a wealth floor, a baseline of passive income that covers his lifestyle. This removes the survival pressure from his consulting work. Because he doesn't need the next client to pay his mortgage, he can be more selective. He can charge higher prices. He can say no to projects that don't inspire him. His assets have given him the ultimate leverage, the power to walk away. The deep dive here is the asset-first mindset. It's the realization that your bank account is a reflection of the value you have stored in the world, not just the hours you have logged. Silas looks at his digital course, his automated lead gen systems, and his invested capital. He realizes he has built a value flywheel. The more assets he creates, the more freedom he has. The more freedom he has, the more time he has to create even better assets. He is no longer an architect who builds buildings. He is an architect who builds wealth-generating machines. He has moved from the grind of the hourly shackle to the grace of the asset legacy. The hourly worth calculation, the cold math of freedom. Imagine Silas sitting at his desk, staring at a flickering light bulb in his studio. It's been buzzing for 3 days. He knows exactly where the ladder is. He knows he can drive to the hardware store, buy a $5 bulb, and swap it out in 20 minutes. It seems like the responsible thing to do. He'd save the $50 service fee an electrician would charge. But then, Silas pauses. He remembers the math of the master that Elias Granton laid out in the 6th chapter. He pulls out a pen and calculates his target hourly rate (THR). He takes his desired annual income, let's say $500,000, and divides it by the 1,000 hours of deep work he plans to do per year. His time is worth $500 an hour. Suddenly, that 20-minute trip to the hardware store isn't saving him $50. It's costing him nearly $170 in opportunity cost. By fixing the bulb himself, Silas is effectively paying himself a wage of $15 an hour to be a handyman. He is firing the $500 an hour architect to hire a $15 an hour laborer. This is the productivity trap that keeps even the most successful people broke in spirit and time. They are penny wise but pound foolish, guarding their wallets while their most precious asset, their time, leaks out like water through a sieve. Granton argues that you must treat your time with the same cold, calculating scrutiny that a hedge fund manager treats capital. If you wouldn't let someone reach into your pocket and steal $200, why do you let low-leverage tasks steal 2 hours of your day? This lesson introduces the buyback principle ***. You aren't just hiring an assistant or an electrician. You are buying back your life at a discount. If Silas can pay someone $30 an hour to handle his administrative emails, and that frees him up to do $500 an hour creative work, he has just made a $470 per hour profit on that transaction. The deep dive here is the psychological hurdle of worthiness. Most people struggle with this calculation because they feel guilty doing nothing while someone else works. They feel the need to be in the trenches. But Granton flips the script. The trenches are where people go to disappear. The general belongs on the hill looking at the map. By calculating your THR, you create a filter for every request that comes your way. Does this task move the needle? Is this a $500 task or a $20 task? If it's a $20 task and you do it, you are officially a $20 an hour employee. Silas puts the pen down. He doesn't go to the hardware store. He sends a quick text to a local handyman and goes back to his drafting table to solve a structural problem for a multi-million-dollar project. He has stopped being a busy man and started being a valuable man. He realizes that the math of wealth isn't about how much money you make. It's about how much of your time you are forced to trade for it. The lower that ratio, the richer you are. Silas is finally learning to be the wealthiest man in the room, not because of his bank balance, but because his time is entirely his own. Rest as a performance enhancer, the symphony of the silence. Imagine Silas standing at the edge of a frozen lake in the high Sierras. The world is muffled by a thick blanket of snow, and the only sound is the rhythmic crunch of his boots. His phone is not just in a drawer. It is effectively dead to him, its battery drained and forgotten. A year ago, Silas would have been riddled with productivity guilt. He would have felt the ghost of his former self whispering that every minute spent staring at the icy blue horizon was a minute he was falling behind. But Elias Granton's final, and perhaps most radical, lesson has rewritten Silas's internal code. Rest is not the absence of work. It is the fuel for it. Granton argues that the human brain is not a machine designed for linear, unending output. It is a biological instrument that operates in rhythms. In the same way a muscle only grows during the rest period after a heavy lift, the mind only synthesizes high-level solutions during periods of profound unplugging. This is the *incubation effect ***. When Silas stops consciously obsessing over a design flaw, his subconscious, the silent titan of his intellect, takes over. It begins to connect the vital 20% ideas in ways his waking, frantic mind never could. By working less, he is actually giving his genius the room it needs to breathe. In the 7th lesson of Work Less, Earn More, the focus shifts from the doing to the being *. Granton introduces the concept of strategic idleness ***. This isn't the passive rest of scrolling through a feed or watching television. It is active rest, hiking, meditation, long dinners with friends, or staring at the sea. These activities clear the cognitive debris that accumulates during deep work. Silas realizes that a burnt-out brain is a blunt instrument. When he tries to work while exhausted, he makes mistakes that take twice as long to fix. He chooses the path of least resistance instead of the path of highest impact. Silas begins to treat his rest with the same discipline he applied to his fortress of focus. He schedules off-grid weeks where no business decisions are allowed. He finds that when he returns from these breaks, his clarity is terrifyingly sharp. He can see through a complex problem in seconds that would have frustrated him for hours before. He isn't just refreshed, he is upgraded. He has learned that the ultimate performance enhancer isn't a new app or a double espresso. It's a nap. It's a walk. It's the permission to be unproductive. The final loop of the story closes not in the studio, but in the quiet spaces in between. Silas looks back at the Julian he used to be, the man drowning in polished floorboards and thick 80 trivialities, and realizes that the greatest lie he ever believed was that his value was a result of his suffering. He now knows that his value is a result of his clarity. By working deeply, billing for value, automating the mundane, and resting with intention, he has achieved the grand synthesis. He earns more than he ever dreamed, yet he feels like he is working less than he did as a student. As the sun sets over the Sierras, casting a violet glow across the snow, Silas feels a profound sense of peace. The work less, earn more system isn't just about money, it's about the reclamation of the human spirit. It's about moving from a life of transaction to a life of contribution. He turns back toward his cabin, his mind quiet, his heart full, and his machine, his beautiful, systematic, high-leverage machine, happily humming along in the distance without him. He has finally mastered the art of being the architect of his own time. Silas doesn't stand on ladders anymore. He doesn't count his life in 6-minute increments, and he doesn't apologize for his rest. He realized that the world doesn't reward you for how tired you are. It rewards you for the value you create and the systems you leave behind. You've just seen the blueprint. You know about the 80-20 pruning, the value-based billing, the fortress of deep work, and the alchemy of high-leverage assets. You have the same math Silas used to buy back his life. The question is, are you going to keep polishing the floorboards of a life you don't have time to live, or are you going to start building the machine that sets you free? The light bulb is buzzing, the clock is ticking, but for the first time the choice of what to do next is entirely yours. Don't just watch this, apply the math, become the architect, work less, earn more, live now. This is not motivation. This is understanding. Subscribe to this channel for ideas that compound over time.